This channel supports Extra Life in its efforts to raise money for the Children's Miracle Network. For more information about how to donate and join in their efforts, go to the link displayed here. Extra Life. Play games, heal kids.
What up, everybody? This your boy Black Magus, and finally, my final thoughts, or not my final thoughts, because I will be doing a spoiler cast, so look out for that. But my overall look back at Red Dead Redemption 2. I finally finished the game. Hooray me! I am one of the, I think it's 36% of the people who purchased the game who actually finished it. I know it's below 40%, but I can't remember the exact number. Basically, not a lot of people have finished this game, and with good reason. Not because it's a bad game. I'm not going to say it's a bad game, but I do definitely have ideas as to why this game has such a low completion rating for a game that is so well revered. So let's just go from the top. Red Dead Redemption 2's story is really, really good. It's probably the best story that Rockstar has ever written. Kudos to the Housers for the way that they took a prequel, and I won't say they necessarily fit it into the lore of the original Red Dead Redemption, but at least kind of explained and showed some of the things that help lead up to it. More importantly, they established a great character in Arthur Morgan. I really, really like Arthur. He was really, really well written. The voice actor did a hell of a job with him. All the voice actors, to be quite honest. I mean, the voice acting in this game is top tier. Like, they're really, really good. And it's helped by really, really solid writing overall. Definitely was a compelling story. It was, very, very emotional in some areas. Like, some of the emotions that it invoked were crazy. Just a solid story to play. Here's the thing, and this is part of the reason why I think you have such a low completion rating for this game. First, pacing. Again, well-written story, but the pacing is very, very slow. And that's due to the realism that they tried to put in. Like, they created a phenomenal landscape. Graphically, it's gorgeous. The world is huge. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of things to do. It's a very alive world. But a very alive world in the late 1800s, in the pre-modern history era. It's really, really slow moving, and that's reflected on how you go from mission to mission and how things transition. They try to keep it as realistic as possible, and it is kind of boring at times to travel in the Wild West or to do certain tasks, and that leads me to the second thing that I think that mars it down is gameplay. Now, when I say, the pacing, it's not necessarily just the gameplay. It's just overall, even when you're in cutscenes and things like that, things go at a very methodical pace, and you're doing too much waiting in between action. In some cases, before you're actually there's been times where I was pulled out of it and I was like, oh, now it's my turn to actually be involved, or where I get someplace and something pops off and I was like, well, I got lulled into the whole writing aspect and all of that where I wasn't expecting things. I guess that's why they put the random encounters in that game to try to keep things lively, but they're not enough random encounters to keep things lively, and a lot of those random encounters involve slow-paced moments as well. So, it is what it is. But anyway, the gameplay. I'm speaking mainly mechanically here. The control mechanics are just bad. I'm sorry. It's not just a Red Dead thing. It's a Rockstar game thing. They have not improved they pretty much, once they created Grand Theft Auto 3 and people loved it, they were like, fine, these mechanics can stay in all of our games, and they've never really addressed it in my book. They're just not good. The gunplay is kind of marred down. The soft lock thing is kind of wonky. Aiming is kind of all over the place. There's little precision in that. Even steering while walking sometimes is weird. Just not the best gameplay mechanics. And then there's some awkward things where, like, again, keeping with the realism, you can go into your wheel and everything's still moving, but in slow motion while you're into your weapon wheel. But you have to hold down L1 and then circle around to what you want. Use the L2 or R2 to switch between items in whatever class. Use R1 to go back and forth between different categories, and it's just like it's very cumbersome. It's clunky and cumbersome. It's very clunky and cumbersome. And then of course the real time thing, like you run out of bullets, you load your gun with each bullet, like you would do in real life. That can cause some problems during heavy gunfights. It's just overall, the controls make the gameplay kind of like frustrating. While there's some really good structured missions and things like that, and you're enjoying yourself doing that, it's not rare to have like the gameplay mechanics bog it down and kind of ruin the fun a bit. So that's probably another reason, because people probably just got tired of that. And then you add the pacing. That's two things that you have to worry about. So, I don't begrudge anybody who didn't feel the need to go through the pacing of the game, or who couldn't deal with the gameplay mechanics. Especially when you throw in the third thing, which is this is a very long game to play to begin with. It generally takes people, I believe they said, on average 50 hours to beat the campaign. I can attest to that because I probably put in about 60, maybe more hours. That's with like dabbling into some of the side stuff, and then finally realizing I gotta stop doing this because this game's pacing. That's the thing that was the biggest to me, the pacing. It's going to keep me like, well, I could push through the gameplay mechanics and I could push through the length of the campaign. The pacing was my biggest gripe, and so adding on side stuff would just make the pacing work. Now there is some benefit to doing some side stuff because your story can change, things can evolve around you differently. The actions that you take, the conversation strings that you take, they can definitely change the dynamics of things, and make the outcomes of some things different. Because I've seen different conversation strings and things like that through other people's streams, so I found that very, very interesting. But at the same time, if you don't have much time and you want to see this whole story, you're gonna find yourself wanting to skip through all of those side things just to get to the heart of the story, because you're gonna be in there for about 50 hours just going straight with the story. And again, the pacing just makes it even worse. So it's really understandable why no one's completed the game. That being said, for all the people who are saying like it's overrated and stuff like that, I will say no, it's not overrated, because that story is phenomenal. And just taking a look at everything, all of its elements individually, they're very, very well done for the most part. Again, with the exception of the pacing and the gameplay mechanics / controls, the game is well put together. And the story is good enough to engage you enough into those elements, even that you don't like. I'm glad it didn't win Game of the Year, because I didn't think it was Game of the Year. After beating it, I still don't think it's Game of the Year. But at the same time, I can understand and appreciate why some people really, really highly regard this game. Would I recommend you play it? Yes, but of course with the asterisk that just be mindful of the things that I pointed out: gameplay, pacing, and the amount of time that you're going to beat it. Because what I said about the 50 hours, that was generally just the main campaign. There is an epilogue afterwards that you have to play, and that's about 6 hours in itself. So you pretty much are going to spend about a good 60 hours playing this game. And if you're down with that, fine. But again, the other things may make your enjoyment, kind of, deteriorate, because that's what it did with me. But it's a good game, good going Rockstar. The Red Dead series is still their best series to me, in my opinion. But yeah, give it a look. I'm curious to what you guys think. So anyway, as always, feel free to hit me up. Let me know what you think, and I'll holler at you later. This your boy Black Makers, and I'm out. Deuces.